Good.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We just had a little technical difficulties getting this going, but I'm glad everybody's on, and I hope there'll be more. So I'm going to ask everybody to mute yourselves if you haven't done so already. We will take questions through chat, and Diana or Rachel will handle that. So anyway, I'm Barry Draycott with Tech Terra Environmental, and this is a very special presentation. Jim and Basia have been friends of mine for a long time. We used to go to trade shows together and just had great conversations. And the reason why I wanted them to come on is because they have a whole different perspective on how to work with trees, how to make them healthy, and how to have them survive better, up and definitely without any chemicals or things like that. So Jim, Basia, welcome, and it's all yours now.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate you having us on. And yes, we do go back many years. Been doing trade shows. We were both doing a lot of trade shows and meeting on the tables, and you know, when we were both really just starting out. Really, we were both just getting going and starting out. So we really appreciate this opportunity to talk with your group here. So thank you for having us. So let's so
let's get this
to the slides.
Technology going again. Okay.
Get everybody in.
And let's see. So I'm the host now. Great. That means I can share my screen. Great. Okay.
And you watch for
there,
people coming in.
I will watch for people coming in. Let me open the participants window here. Okay. So this is a little juggling act. But we thank you, Barry. And so the name of our talk today is Practical Holistic Insights into How Trees Really Operate from the Inside Out. And trees need a higher level of thinking from people. All right. So
I'm Jim Conroy, and I'm the tree whisperer.
And I'm Basia Alexander, and my website is partnerwithnature.org. And you can read more about us if you want to go to the About Us menu at partnerwithnature.org. Okay, and I'm clicking around. There we go. All right,
there we go.
Go ahead.
I do services, on-site services. We do some philanthropic work, as you'll see during the presentation here a little bit too. But I'm a plant pathologist by profession. And, you know, I have 30 years of experience in the ag chemical business. When I was doing tables and shows, people would come up to me all the time and they said, yeah, but you don't know, you know, and I'd sit there and say, oh, yes, I do. I know a lot better than you do, you know. So, and it came to the chemical side of the business. So, so that's kind of my background. Go ahead,
and I create all of the illustrations, the classes, and I give structure to all of these systems, and in fact, a few more that you see here on this screen. And our classes are available through partnerwithnature.org, but we both teach together. We're co-founders of the BioBalia Institute. We've written 7 books.
7 books, yeah.
And just a teeny bit of background, we've been doing this for about 20 years, and it's really all about the development of the methodologies for tree, plant, and ecosystem health and well-being. But what's really important is our commitment to partnership with nature, and we're dedicated to restoring a livable planet. But what you really need to know about us is
we are tree lovers.
And here we're with a giant sequoia in California. So we'd like to find out, are you a tree lover? And if you are welcome to type yes into the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead, Jim.
So what we'll cover today is thinking at a higher level about the health of trees. This is all higher level discussion. Healing sick trees by restoring their internal functionality. This isn't about putting products on the tree. It's about restoring that internal functionality. We're going to talk a little bit about partnering with nature, not trying to dominate or control nature, but coming from the tree's point of view, coming from their point of view. And we'll talk about a little bit about the relative sciences and relevant sciences and what anyone can do. First thing I need to tell you is you're gonna have to step out of the box on this discussion in a little bit. It's not going to be your ordinary discussion about trees and plants. I'll guarantee you that much. And so, it's going to be a little bit, like I say, step out of the box. When I was in the chemical business, got about early to mid 80s, people started talking to me about organics, and I started saying, what? Organic what? You can't grow food. You can't grow things without chemicals. Well, look where we are today. Okay. So that's where this work is. It's a little bit out there in front. And, just appreciate a little open-mindedness to the work. If you're here to find out what's wrong with it, or you say, well, I don't want to hear what they got to say, don't waste your time, but if you're really here with an open mind, please stay and be on this discussion. Okay. So nature is hurting and in trouble. It's drought, fires, species failure, tree decline, new insects and diseases. That drought up there, that picture of the drought, that's Lake Oroville in California. That was the water was to the top of that in late 2019. So you can just tell how much drought there is. All right. And then you can see the other pictures as well. So, but one of the things is, how do we solve these problems? And I love what Albert Einstein said. He said, it's a higher level of thought. We can't solve these problems using the same kind of thinking we used when we created those problems. It takes this higher level of thought to solve these problems. So what's the bad news here? Well, the trees everywhere are generally not healthy, even if they look green. And so we're going to cover a little bit, what are the stress factors that cause poor health? Well, first of all, you get local environmental stresses, too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes how they affect the internal functionality of the trees and plants. Unseasonable swings in weather, for example, weather or climate extremes. For example, I know up here in northern New Jersey, we had 60, 65 degree weather between Christmas and New Year's. Then we get down into the low 20s at night. Okay, tree has to put up with that. Okay, and that's an insult to the tree. How do I handle this? Pollution and global climate changes, multiple season or multiple year stresses. Okay, that's drought one year followed by extreme cold maybe the next year or something like that. Human damage, and then so on and so forth. Okay, one thing we always put in every talk is do not volcano mulch. We said this is an actual picture, folks. This is not drawn. This is an actual picture we found. Okay, and we see this all the time. Smothers the roots. Please don't smother those roots. Okay, that'll send a tree into a decline pattern right away. So what to look for in unhealthy trees? Look for less or smaller leaves, upper dead branches, dead spots in the middle of the tree, things such as that. Okay, that's what you're looking for. And I'll show you a few more pictures here in a minute. But the first question is, what comes first? Insects or diseases or the unhealthy tree? And please type your answer into the chat. Okay, what comes first? Insects or diseases or the unhealthy tree? All right, move on, Basia. So here's what to look for in unhealthy trees. Okay, you get those upper branches. They have either no leaves at all or very small leaves. You get blank spots in the middle of the tree or smaller leaves in the middle of the tree. That all gives you a hint that tree is in a is hurt and in a decline cycle. So what's the answer to the question? Well, it's really the stress tree comes first. So here's how this whole works out. Okay, first of all, trees live in communities. All right. There's a community, first of all, of like oaks and a community of maples and a community of various species of trees. But then there's another community that takes in, it's a higher level community that takes in multiple species of trees. So that's the first thing you have to understand, is that trees operate in community. One trunk is not a tree. Okay, in the trees world, one trunk is not a tree. It's many trees is a tree in the trees world. Okay, so what happens is a tree gets sick. One tree gets sick. All right, The first year, it loses 10% of its leaves. You don't see that. You'll never see that. The next year, it uses another 10% of its leaves. You don't see that. Get about the fourth or fifth year, third, fourth, fifth year, then you've lost enough leaves at the top of that tree. You start saying, I think that tree is in trouble. It's starting to hurt. Well, by then, the insects and diseases have come along. So let me talk a little bit about that, how they get there. All right. So I told you trees and plants operate in community. Well, how is the community all formed? Well, yeah, roots touching, mycorrhizae, things like that. Yes, all of that. But really, the way they communicate is by sharing a vibrational song. Okay, that's it. That's what they do. And when a tree is in trouble, when it's sick, it will ask for help from the community. So what it does is it sings an offbeat song, okay, into the community. It's asking for help. Well, guess who hears that offbeat song? The insects and diseases. They hear that. So they know exactly where to go. That's how the emerald ash borer knows to find the ash tree in the middle of the oak forest. And that's also how the flea beetle can find a 2-acre patch of eggplants in the middle of a 100-acre farm field. Okay, that's how it's done. It's all by that song, okay, and that offbeat song. Indigenous people used to dance to the song of trees, that community that helped the trees form those communities, okay, and that's what they used to dance to. Go ahead, Basia. Yeah, one of the things that happens is stress compromises internal functionality in trees. So, and we're gonna talk a lot more about this as we go along. So, when you have, let's say you have this circulation is compromised inside of the tree, well, then you're getting reduction in water and nutrients absorbed by the roots. You're getting less water and nutrients go to the leaves for photosynthesis, less food produced in the leaves, reduced food going to the grow points, and then reduce growth. Okay, so I always love this slide because this really shows the interaction of various functions. You got photosynthesis, which is making food, circulation, and cell division. Well, if either one of those functions aren't connected all up, or they're not interconnected, that is not going to be a healthy tree. Naturally, the tree needs to make food, needs to circulate that food and get that food out to the growing point so the cells can divide and the tree can grow. Okay, that's what needs to happen. If they're not connected up, that can't happen. Go ahead. So let's talk about the downward spiral, or illustrate this downward spiral that can happen with the various stresses. And I tried to show it. This is the best way I can give you some example of what's happening here. So the first stress comes, let's say A, B, C, D are the various functions. First stress comes along, blocks the tree between function A to function B. What's the tree do? Real good, it can compensate for that. Second stress comes along, what's the tree do? It can compensate for that. Now, third stress comes along, now the tree is blocked, okay? 3 or more stresses lead to decline, all right? I don't care what product you use on this tree. You can use all the products you want on this tree, but until you repair that internal functionality, that is not going to be a healthy tree, okay? The others where it's just compensating, yes, you can repair that, but when they're blocked, when that health is blocked like this, they're stuck, they're in a pattern, they're trapped, and they're not going to grow anymore, okay? And then eventually they go into a decline cycle. So that's what that's all about. So why can't trees and plants heal themselves? Well, it takes a higher level of thought, and I'll go into this. And you really have to think about things differently.
So what about thinking about things differently? Well, the old way of thinking is a cultural mindset that started at least as far back as the 17th century, the so-called Renaissance and Enlightenment period of history. And the mindset that developed out of that is that people can control and dominate nature. And science was really created at that point in time. Science really hadn't been done in a formal way or in any way really before that. So those who did that and since then have begun to think that science is somehow superior to nature. And in fact, people's training in it is also superior to nature. So how does that, I have to let someone in. So how does that, how does that sound? Well, people say things like trees are decoration, or I'm crazy if I touch a tree or talk to a tree, or I can do whatever I want to a tree because I'm educated, or trees can't heal. Well, let me ask you a question, and you don't have to answer that in the chat, but I'll ask this question. How has that worked out? Not very well, we think. So people are feeling separate from nature, exploitation, pollution, climate extremes. That's what has come from that mindset. Well, we can shift mindsets. There's a paradigm shift occurring now on the whole planet. So the kinds of things people can say now are, trees are as alive as I am, and connecting or communicating with trees is my birthright. And trees and all of nature can have an inner intelligence, or they do have an inner intelligence that I can respect, and I can even ask them for information. And as living beings, trees can become healed from the inside out. So that's that new mindset that we have a chance to work toward. Well, how do we do that? How really do we change our minds and move to that mindset of partnership with nature when caring for trees?
Well, one of the things is accept that trees are alive and even sentient beings. All right. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of research on this. Okay. So.
Oh, sorry, you weren't quite done.
So I wasn't done. So first of all, trees and plants are alive. They grow, they branch, they leaf out, and they fruit with their own growth energy. All right. It's a higher level of thought, accept that trees are alive. Go ahead.
So we'll ask you, do trees and plants have their own inner intelligence? And you could, again, if you like, answer in the chat. But we've kind of stacked the deck here because we're showing you pictures of really very smart trees and plants. Eat sunlight, they eat bugs. That one at the top there makes its own greenhouse at 12,000 feet. That's in the Himalayan mountains. Another one over here behaves like a snake in the jungle. Sunflowers, we know they follow the sun, and all trees know how to grow, where to branch, and how to live where they are planted. But we're not the only ones who say this. There's a group of scientists, the Society for Plant Signaling and Behavior, and their website is plantsignaling.com, and I do have it written in a later slide too. You can pick that up then. But this is what they say. Plants compute inputs from the environment. They use cost-benefit analysis. They mitigate environmental insults, and they are capable of recognizing self from non-self. Oh my gosh, that's pretty smart.
So what drives a plant? You know, what drives a plant and how it grows? Well, you know, humans have a brain and rational thinking, but plants have a consciousness, and that consciousness is their guiding light. The consciousness drives their goals and purposes. So let me read you a little saying here about consciousness. So they say that an oak tree is brought into creation by two forces at the same time. Obviously, there's the acorn from which it all begins, the seed which holds all the promise and the potential which grows into a tree. Everybody can see that. But only a few can recognize that there's another force operating here as well, the future tree itself, which wants so badly to exist that it pulls the acorn into being, drawing the seedling forth with longing out of the void, guiding the evolution from nothingness to maturity. In this respect, say the Zens, it is the oak tree that creates the very acorn from which it was born. That future tree itself is the tree's consciousness. All right. And that is the guiding light for the tree. Go ahead. So consciousness comes before form. As I said, the consciousness is the guiding light. It contains their goals. I want to be tall. I want to be big. I want to be whatever it is, healthy. I want to be strong. Okay. Ideal design or blueprint. I want to be an apple tree. I don't want to be an oak tree. Innate potentials. I want to grow apples. I don't want to grow acorns. All right. And purpose. They all have a purpose. Every plant has a purpose. Even weeds have a purpose. Cover the earth, hold the soil down. All right. That's their purpose. Okay. And then during the actual growing time, plants perceive choices, and I'll show you some example of these, and make something like decisions based on those goals. All right, I'll show you that in a few minutes. Some of the other things consciousness drives is fall preparation for winter, storing food, getting food into the buds for next year's growth. In spring, getting the flow of food and fluids going within all parts, systems, and functions, and so on and so forth. Good. Yeah. So what I said is this, that guiding light, that consciousness is the guiding light. With these willows here on the left, they were very, very poor shape when they were planted. And this particular willow said, look, some of these branches I can't push out growth into anymore. And, or I could push out some growth into them, but I'd rather cut them off and put on new branches. Okay, rather than try to send out growth out of those older branches. So they made a decision, go ahead, put out the new branches. What's happened is the older branches probably all plugged up. And so the plant says, I can put out a new branch and get to where I want to be faster by using new branches as opposed to working with the older branches. This oak tree is saying, look, I want to put on some additional top growth. But if I do that and I'm out of balance, and I don't have enough xylem and phloem tissue, I need to put on some xylem and phloem first. Either that, or was in this particular case, what was happening was it had grown and it just didn't have enough xylem and phloem. So it wanted to take its food and push it towards xylem and phloem rather than top growth up into the tree. They make a conscious decision to do that because that's good for their overall health and goals. Good. So why can't sick trees and plants heal themselves? Again, if they're just a little bit sick, yes, they can. But I'm talking about really the ones that are really sick. Okay, what happens is when sick, they get stuck or confused. I've seen this more often than you want to know. They can't manage their inner resource. The sequence of systems is not in sync. They can't grow, and they go into decline cycle. And you can see that that growth, those cycle patterns, network patterns in the lower right-hand corner. Either that, and also the tree consciousness knows what it wants to do, but it doesn't have the resource, the food and fluids, and the path to healing is blocked. Okay, so all of those, that's why the tree can't heal itself. So we come in with our work. What we do is we take these network patterns, photosynthesis, circulation, and cell division. First of all, repair those and then get them all back interconnected again. So you have good, clear network patterns and the functionality is high. And now the tree can make the food it needs to make. It can circulate the food, get the food out to the growing point where it needs to get to. That's the kind of work that we do, working with the internal functionality of the trees and plants.
And we'll explain a little more about that shortly.
There you go. So conventional tree care doesn't restore good inner health, doesn't strengthen inner functionality, and doesn't reestablish community among trees. Now, look, I'm not bad-mouthing conventional tree care, okay? In fact, I like it when they're on a property that I'm also working on because they do serve a function, okay? But, Basia?
Well, we feel that conventional tree care is a little bit too based in that old mindset of thinking, control, domination, and superiority. They're really coming from that human point of view. They're making decisions based on what they know, what they've learned, what their science is, coming from that human point of view, but not from the tree's point of view.
Okay, so one of the things with trees when they're sick Stress causes inner blockages. I've talked a little bit about this already. So you get the inner blockages cause poor health, and the poor health cause inner blockages. Circulation gets blocked, so food and fluids can't move around. Roots can't uptake water and nutrients. Much less food is produced and less circulated. Growth slows everywhere, and then the tree goes into decline. I need to tell you all, this is a big problem with stress in trees and plants. Okay, they get blocked, they get plugged up. This is the problem. Barry told me the other night that he lost a nice big cherry tree in his yard. This, let me tell you, I guarantee you, this is what happened to that tree. Those vascular tissue in that tree got blocked up. It happens more often than you want to know, with especially with cherry trees. That sap gets hardened in there. Some reason the circulation maybe slows down because of stress. The sap gets hardened. It's like pulling things through a block sieve, and they just gradually they just can't move food and fluids around, and then they just gradually go into a decline cycle. Let me tell you a little bit about oaks. Oaks,
Jim,
for example.
if I could just say, I have to give that cherry tree credit because it did survive for 70 years, but it was a long, slow, and probably painful decline.
Yes, that's what happens. That's exactly what happens, because it gradually starts, and then then what happens is you get other things come out of sync. The parts and systems aren't in sync anymore. And then, so that's what all happens. And it's not getting enough food, it's not growing, and other parts just start to decline. And then the tree just gradually goes. And that's what happened. Let me tell you about oaks. One of the things in oaks, and I see Richard McCoy is on here, and I know Richard's a big proponent of oaks, and I love oaks, because they help with the Lepidoptera species. But one of the things that happens with oaks, they get plugged up in the roots to trunk area. All right, where that little line is on that slide, you can see it, and right there you see a couple of X's right there, right about there. So let me tell you what happens. At first, trees pull up water through the intercellular spaces, okay, between the cells, okay, that's what happens. And then just at about the point where the xylem and phloem are formed, and then that's where the water fluids come up into the tree and the xylem tissue down in the phloem. But as it's coming into those tissues, that vascular tissue, right about there, that's a real popular spot for oaks to get blocked up, right there, right at that zone. Don't know why. Some happens, they get stressed, circulation slows down, and then they get blocked right at that point. Also, branches to buds get very blocked. Watch that in the fall, get blocked up. And what you want is get those, make sure it get good flow between the branches and the buds, because that's your growth for next season. And the trees, after being in especially a tough winter, they need to leaf out fast and make good food of themselves, okay, and feed themselves. And if that's blocked, they're not quite able to do that, okay. And first of all, the seeds the buds don't have all the food in them they need, and then when the growing season starts again, they can't get all the fluids into the buds. So this is very important. Believe me, this is a big problem in trees, this circulation getting blocked. Go ahead, Basia. And so what do we do? Trees' inner health functionality can be healed from the inside out. And healing means restoring that inner flow of food and fluids with conscious interactions, not products, okay? So how do I do this, all right? Well, it's like an athlete in the zone. I find out where the tree is stuck. I use my scientific knowledge to ask the trees the right questions. Now, look, it isn't my mouth to the tree's ear, okay? The tree doesn't have an ear. But what it is it's a bioenergy overlap and a consciousness overlap. It's a right brain intuitive process versus a left brain logical process, okay? It's intuitive. It's the consciousness overlap. It's working with the consciousness of the tree. It's an intuitive connection with that consciousness in this bioenergy overlap. That's exactly what it is. If you don't know, an example of intuitive interaction is I'll tell you what, you own a dog, this is how you're communicating with that dog. That dog doesn't talk to you either. Yes, it barks, but you're having an intuitive, I'll guarantee you're having an intuitive interaction with that dog. All right. And that's the same thing I have with the trees, finding out what's not operating inside of that tree, what's not connected to what, and getting that back connected again. Go ahead, Basia. Next slide. So in my conscious awareness, I asked a plant question, discover a path to healing. Okay, we need to connect this to this, need to connect this to this, this to this, get this back operating again. Usually with trees, it's about, there can be a lot of things that are wrong and not operating inside of the tree. Okay, usually if you get the 4 or 5 key things, okay, for example, get that circulation back going again, get that inner functionality going between circulation, food production and growth, get that back connected again, get all of those things. You get those 4 or 5 major things connected, the tree takes care of the rest of it. Okay, then just everything else just instantly clears up. It doesn't instantly clear up, it takes time. Okay, trees are very slow. They're on tree time for repair. Okay, but actually the functions begin to happen. And like I say, it takes years for trees to really repair themselves. I'm a pass-through. I get insight. I take direction from my spirit guides and the intelligence of nature. I do not apply energy. I'm the pass-through of information. I'm just in intuitive interaction with that plant, having that intuitive interface with the tree, knowing what questions. I've learned, studied a lot of plant physiology, so I know what questions to answer that tree. But you know what? We do teach people simple processes to do this. This is not that hard. People can do this, okay? And we teach people to do this. Go ahead. So I'll use this as an example. This is a real good example. This was the trees prior to the Caldor fire in California. Caldor fire burned about 400,000 acres in California last year. And this is what was going on for the trees prior to the fire. There was less food available. They weren't making enough food for themselves in photosynthesis. Pollution, okay? Pollution, probably a big factor there. Also, circulation plugged, but pollution, I guarantee, was a big factor. Less circulation, little food or fluid distribution, less growth, less health, and then less food available. So they just kept going in that cycle. So let me show you what the path to healing was for these. And this is kind of a simple path to healing, but it was used some stored food in the roots. This is for the trees that weren't bad, that weren't severely burned. Okay. Now look, here's what goes on. There's some trees that get so burned that they have no life force left in them already. But I know which ones have life force in them and which ones don't. I can feel it. Okay. And as long as they have some life force, they might not have any leaves or any needles on them. I don't care. Okay. But if they have some life force left in them, then we can work with them. Okay. So we get them to break down some food in the roots. Okay. You get a breakdown of food, you get an energy release. Okay. That energy release will drive the circulation. Then what they'll do is differentiate some tissue, leaf or needle buds, and leaf or needle growth. Okay, that'll help make some food. That'll make some more health. Gradually over time, the part systems and functions will be fed. They'll start to come back into operating in sync, and so on and so forth. And you continue that cycle all the way around again. Okay, use that food to drive more circulation, differentiate more tissue, and grow some more. And I'll show you some pictures of this in a few minutes. But trees' inner health can be healed from the inside out. Healing means restoring that inner flow of food and fluids with conscious interactions, not products. That's what we do. Okay, this takes a higher level of thought. Go ahead, Basia. So this is a tree in Ojai, California. We did some work on. We've done a lot of work in these fire areas, but you can see the results here. And what do? We help the trees manage their resources to sustain growth and not fail. What can very often happen is the trees will start to grow after a fire and then they'll fail. Okay, happens more times than you want to know. Okay. If we can help them get those parts, systems, and functions back connected again, get them connected to the resources, get them connected to their food source and the roots, get everything back working again, they have a less chance of failure. I really like to get there early in the season or shortly after the fire. I'll show you some pictures in a minute, but this is what we do. Go ahead, Basia. Next slide. This is what happens. Okay, right out of the bark. Okay, the bark cracks. It's so great to see this. I got to tell you, it just blows me away every time I see this. All right, the bark splits, and then the tree starts to send out a new shoot. And as we said, we help the tree manage their inner resource to sustain growth and not fail. That's what we do. Okay, and again, what we do is we treat the whole forest. We don't just treat one tree. Or what we do at each site, we'll earmark one tree. This happened to be one tree we earmark, and then we'll watch that one tree. Okay, and take pictures of it. Yeah, you can show that picture again. Okay, and you can see the before and after on that tree. Go ahead, Basia. Okay, this is a tree in Chicago, and I purposely put this one up because this was hit with emerald ash borer. Okay, and the reason I put this up was because emerald ash borer first came through the Great Lakes region. All right, that's where it came through, and you can see that ash tree not looking too good. But what can happen? Start working with the trees, work with the functions in the trees. The emerald ash borer can live, the tree can live, and they can both go on their way. Okay, and as you can see, that tree in what it looks like in 221. Now it took probably about took probably 3-4 years for that tree to. Well, you can see in this picture, it took 6 years to get there like that. But 3 or 4 years, it probably started to look pretty good. Trees are on tree time. They don't heal. They don't heal instantly. They just take their time. And I have to tell clients that all the time. Just give the tree a chance to heal. Go ahead, Basia. Okay. Organisms and trees can exist. This is the pine bark beetle in Colorado. Okay. We were asked to come out and do some work and with some people in Colorado. And this was before I even knew if I could possibly do anything like this work. I was working with just trees. We're working with organisms and trees to get them to live together and work together. So we went out there and did some work, and that was in 2007. And this is one tree. Again, we earmarked a tree, and you can see the others in the background are green, but you can also see the vascular tissue in that tree. How that pine bark beetle works a lot like the emerald ash borer. It invades the vascular tissue on the tree, and that's what eventually kills the tree. But working with the insect, working with the tree, we can keep the tree going, keep the tree growing, and that's what we try to do. Go ahead, Basia. This is a good story. This is a tree we did some work on in Greenwich, Connecticut. What happened was this tree was transplanted, okay, in about July of 2017. And it was a little bit late when it got transplanted. Guy left on vacation, put a watering hose, a slight drip watering hose, left it for several weeks. So the tree the roots kind of got soaked, one might say. But also you have a problem. He's right there by Long Island Sound. And what happens is the water table comes up. So you get brackish water coming up into the tree. Got to be about May, and that tree wasn't leafing out. And the owner was kind of getting a little bit concerned about it. So I started to work on the tree. And one of the three things I had to do with this tree, first of all, I worked with it to give it a path to healing. But trying to get it to take that path was really interesting. You know, I told you when I think I told you, well, first of all, I forgot one thing. The tree lost all of its leaves in August of the year it was transplanted in 2017. In August, it dropped all of its leaves. So it got to be May of 2018. And the guy saying, man, my tree gonna leaf out. What's going on here? So what happened was work with the tree. And I told you how they get stuck. Okay, when they get under stress. That's exactly where this tree was. So it said, again, help working with a path to healing. Tree said, well, if I take that path to healing and it doesn't work, I'm toast, you know? And I said, yeah, but you know, you got to give it a try. And we kind of worked back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally I said, okay. Tree said, yeah, okay, I'll give it one more shot. And it did. 3 days later, you see the picture on the right, the tree started to bud out. And then you can see the tree in future years turned out to be a nice tree. Helping trees make the decision, take the path to growth. Consciousness aligns with that path to healing. That's the key. Remember, I told you, every tree has a consciousness, all right? That's their guiding light. It aligns with that path to healing. And then the tree goes on and follows that path to healing and gets healthy again, all right? This is a good story. This was a tree I was working with in a greenhouse in Toronto. And I was actually teaching a class up there. And the people in the greenhouse said, gee, can you help this tree out? So I said, yeah, I think so. And you can see what it looked like. Well, apparently what had happened is the heating system had gone off in the middle of winter. So this tree got extremely cold, and this is a Malaysian tree, likes warm. They were dumping too much excess insecticide on the tree. Somebody miscalculated the insecticide. It was not grown in very poor soil. And what they thought of, the tree needs lots of water. So they thought we'd keep dumping water on it. I had my hands on that tree, and all of a sudden I felt that tree shift, okay, from a downward spiral to back to growth pattern again. Okay, literally felt that tree make that shift. I mean, I'll never forget the experience. All right. And this is what the tree looked like several months later. And the kind of the thing about that was when I went up there in October, I never called the people to tell them I was coming back up to look at the tree. I knew that tree made it. Okay. And because of that shift that had taken place, the inner functionality was repaired, got everything back in sync. Dynamic balance was restored inside of that tree. Go ahead, Basia. This is a crab apple. You can see 20 versus 21 up in Westchester, New York. This is a hedge with salt damage on a hedge. You see that? Go ahead. This is a live oak. This is one of my celebrity clients in California. Good story here. She had an arborist working on these trees. We had met. She has lots of live oaks. Her whole property is live oaks. And as I said, she's a celebrity client, really loves her trees, but she really loves her trees. And the arborist told her, we met, the arborist had a show, and he told her, he said, look, I've done all I can for these trees. Call them. They can help you. Okay. And so she did. She called us. We went out there and we started to work on these trees. This is what the trees look like about 3 years later. Okay, takes time. They take time. That's even pretty fast. Takes 4 or 5 years. Remember, took 4 or 5 years for the tree to be able to see the decline cycle. All right, so it takes about that same amount of time for the tree to get healthy again. Go ahead, Bosch. Yeah, this is the fire in this is the redwoods in Paradise, California. Again, you can see the befores and the afters. You see the new shoots coming out of the bark. Well, you can see after May 8th what had happened. We went back there 4 times that year, 4 times. And a path to healing helps the trees manage their inner resources to sustain growth and not heal. This is the way those trees looked in July. Okay, came back considerably. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and now
okay.
Okay, now we're in.
Now we're in 2020. We missed 20. We didn't travel during 220 because of COVID. So we missed 20, and this is what the trees looked like in 221 when we finally got back there. Okay, it looked really good. Go ahead, Basia. Yeah, now this is the Greenville, California. Many of you heard about this. This burned last October. Okay, many of you heard. If you don't think that was a hot fire, look at that trailer sitting right there on the ground. Okay, we went in there right after they put out the fire in October. We got in there early November to work on these trees. Now we're not just working on the oaks there. We're working on all of those pines behind that oak. Okay, so we're kind of working on the whole area. but we thought it was interesting because these are some, again, we earmarked certain trees and we earmarked these oaks. And again, this was an extremely hot fire. Well, here it is. Now, we just were there earlier this month. You can see Basia by those live oaks starting to take some pictures. Okay. And this was our healing process. Go ahead, Basia. And this is what she found. Okay. This is what happens. These shoots, they start to send out some new shoots out of the bark, not out of the bark, but out of the growth of the tree and out of the trunk of the tree. And that's your new growth. That's where the new growth will come from. And that tree will not fail. But it was going to fail. That wouldn't have grown that big by now. If they fail, they get just a little bit up there and then they die out. One of the things we did, like I said, we went there in November, was to get the parts and systems all back connected in the trees, then get them all back operating inside of the trees. And then so in spring, when they started to grow, they could grow. Okay. And they had a path to healing. That was one of the things we did. You also work in different areas. This is working with different species because the Adirondack Mountains, for example, the birch trees can't take the higher altitudes anymore. Okay. They die back. And because of the climate extremes, okay, just can't take it anymore. So we're trying to work with the species a little bit, get them, work with them so they can adapt better to the changes in climate. All right.
So that's our story about connecting the dots and restoring inner functionality. And how does that happen? Through direct interaction between human and plant consciousness. And there are some relevant sciences. So Fritjof Capra proposed these 3 definitions of a living system. Well, he didn't really propose them. He did a lot of research himself with other scientists, and this is what they came up with. A living system operates in a network pattern of organization, and we've shown you that in previous slides. A living system goes through dynamic change and yet maintains a stable structure. Ilya Prigogine won a Nobel Prize for discovering this. And the last one is a living system shows intelligence or cognition. New cellular biology, Bruce Lipton, who is an expert in this field, calls the cell membranes membranes. In other words, there's so much intelligence there. They know what to let in and they know what to push out or allow to go out. So human bioenergy research, we highly recommend this book, The Heart Math Solution. These folks at this institute have done a lot of research and have discovered that the human heart is more than a pump. It, among other things, it produces a bioenergy field that they have measured out to about 5 feet away from the human body. So what that means is that when you are close to someone, as Dr. Jim and I are close to each other right now, both people's bioenergy fields are overlapping. And they have a lot of scholarly articles at their website describing this. Well, there is also plant bioenergy research. And I will point you again to the organization, that scientific organization, plantsignaling.org. And all of them have support for the idea that plants emit bioenergy fields. So in our own book, Tree Whispering, A Nature Lover's Guide, we go into a fair amount of detail about how the human heart is producing this bioenergy field. And when you are close to a tree or plant that is also producing its own bioenergy field, information is shared and exchanged in that overlap. And as Dr. Jim has mentioned, it is a right-brained intuitive process. We'd also like to point you to the plantinitiative.org. This is a wonderful group that was formed about a year ago, and they are dedicated to educating the public into respecting trees and plants as sentient beings. They're a great source of information for all of this research. Paul Moss puts out a monthly newsletter that is just full of wonderful information. And we were very honored to be asked to speak at their conference last year. Each of us had a slot at their conference. So if you want more information, go to our website, partnerwithnature.org, and do a search on reading list. And you'll find these and many more books there that contribute to the relevant sciences behind this work. So anybody can do this. Direct interaction between human and plant consciousness. And how does it begin? Well, with a connection experience. You can find out what a tree's life is like, and you can give those trees what we call healing mindful methods. Well, we'd like to thank our friend Mike. Maybe some of you know him. He's an organic land care teacher up in Connecticut and an arborist in Connecticut. And this is what he has said. I walk up to the trees, but before I touch them, I state my intention quietly. I say, I'd like to come inside. I'd like to listen to you. Is that okay? Then I remember what Dr. Jim said. Forget everything. Forget the botany and the physiology that you know. Forget all the learning and just listen to the tree. To me, forgetting equates to humility. Humility is tough for me because I am proud of what I know. But as Dr. Jim tells me to do, I come from the tree's point of view to hear from the tree, not me. Thank you very much, Mike. That's exactly our philosophy. So, connection experiences. Well, Barry was kind enough to let us offer an opportunity to stay, for people to stay on a little bit after our Q&A time to go through a guided visualization experience if you would like to do that. It's a 5-step easy, simple way to connect. But just to give you a hint, what it's about with a connection experience is to see through their eyes, to stand in their roots, to be the tree. Okay, so in summary, practical actions are only half of what's needed for humanity to restore a livable planet. Yes, we need to reduce emissions and stop pollution and have advances. And that will do a lot of good, but it's not going to heal already stressed or declining trees, forests, or ecosystems. What will? Well, we say it's people's direct and conscious healing efforts with trees and forests. So, how do you do that? Well, we teach these mindful methods. They're simple and easy and quick. They involve visualizing, what we call whispering, and doing meditations. This is the higher level of thought that we talked about right at the beginning of this talk. You have to kind of be open-minded and stretch yourself into this idea, and it works. We also go beyond connection experiences, and we teach communication, collaboration, and co-creation with nature. So we hope you'll consider signing up for our courses. We're about to announce and post what we call Mend Climate Extremes as a series of courses, and Deal with Drought as a series of courses. So we hope you'll invest in yourself and your trees and your world. And you can also always contact us, Whisperer at thetreewhisperer.com, and Nature Partner at partnerwithnature.org. Okay, so I am going to turn this back over. I'm going to stop sharing and turn this back over. Where did you go in this list here? Oh, there's Diana. Okay. And I'm going to make you the host. All right, there we go.
Thanks, Basia.
Okay.
So Jim and Basia, I want to thank you both so much. You have such old souls and the wisdoms of the ancients, and we need more of that. I'm just blown away by your presentation. I certainly had an idea what you were going to be talking about, and it really went deep into my soul. Is about the best I can say. So.
Oh,
Thank you, Barry. Thank you.
Oh my.
And,
Touch our hearts, Barry. Touch
Thank
our
you.
hearts. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we will have links to your website and courses, and we'll send out to people.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. If there's questions, comments, we're open.
There are no questions in the chat at this moment, but I just wanted to say thank you personally, because you guys came to my house during COVID and talked to my trees, communicated with my trees, especially my ash trees that were really in a state of decline. And I know you had some advice that it wasn't all good news. So I just want to say thank you for all the time and effort that you came out and did that for me and for my trees. I will say, sadly, I came home from vacation to find that the city decided to cut all the ash trees down on our street.
I knew they would.
no.
I knew
Yeah.
they would, Rachel. I
Yeah.
just knew they were. Yeah.
And they were
just
kind
don't want-
enough to leave me with the stumps, though, so that was nice of them.
Oh,
Parting present.
That's what they do. They
Yeah.
just say it's not worth it and they cut the trees down.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to my
I-
system too.
Yes.
So, but thank you very much for my.
I've allowed
Great.
everybody to unmute themselves. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and unmute, or you can type it into the chat, and then Rachel and I could ask for you. So anyway- oh, go
I
ahead.
do see someone here in the chat who said people would do well to try your techniques on each other as well. Well, yes. We don't claim anything for people, but we were originally inspired 20 years ago by, and I'll give them a plug very happily, the Body Talk system is a wonderful energy medicine system for people, and that was one of our original inspirations. So
And it's based on the same idea.
of-
Get the heart and the lungs connected, get the brain and the heart and the lungs, or get the various parts of the body all connected. It's
Yeah.
the same concept.
And also based on that same idea of asking, you ask the body, like we ask the trees and plants. You don't assume you know anything, you simply ask.
Anything else?
See, that's all I see in the chat right
Okay.
now.
Well, why don't we thank everybody? And anybody wants to stay on,
Yeah,
We're
we're
gonna
gonna do a
do
guided
visualization.
visualization.
we'll take you through a
next.
guided visualization. It's very interesting exercise. I'll tell you, it's Masha will lead you through it. You'll love it. And it's a real connection to trees. You can, she'll tell you all about it. You can either use a tree you have, you can hold in your consciousness a picture of a tree
Yeah.
or a tree
yeah.
you have
Or
that you really care about, or she has some pictures of some trees you can use.
we'll give you a couple that you could.
That can you use, okay?
Yeah.
I have a
So
tree
just-
outside
just-
my bedroom window.
Just
Yeah.
before you start, if anybody's leaving, I just want to, say thank you for attending, and I know it was a great experience for everybody. Next week, we have Steve Retke from Rutgers, who was very influential to me. He taught me about integrated pest management. So that will be next week's talk. So with that, you guys go ahead.
And thank you, Barry. Thank you again for
Yes.
having us on. We really appreciate it and really appreciate the opportunity to talk with your group. We really, really thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, okay.
Oh, and
so-
tell your neighbor, I'll do that
Linden,
l-
no, not Linden.
Tulip.
Liriodendron
Tulip tree.
tulipifera.
Tell her we'll do it. Okay, tell her if she sees somebody stand there, well, you'll be with us, but you see somebody stand there holding on to the tree, tell her
I
don't be
see
afraid.
Richard McCoy has his hand up. Richard, you want to
Good.
unmute yourself and ask a question or give him a sec to unmute here?
Yeah.
Wow, Rick.
What are you doing? Technical difficulties?
So
No,
until he connects, just a little story on that tulip tree next door. It's about a 70-foot tree, and my neighbor wanted a couple limbs cut off. And unfortunately, the tree guy did, the common term might be butchering, but it's hat racked. He cut full-size branches way back, no leaves on it whatsoever. So I'm so glad you guys are coming to work with us.
Yeah, we'll help you with that tree too.
Definitely.
Yeah, I got a spot in my heart for lindens or
Yeah.
tulip trees.
Tulip
these days.
trees.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember the regular name. I can only remember
Liriodendron
Liriodendron tulipifera.
Yeah.
so it looks like Richard was able to unmute. You want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, just a comment, Jim and Basia. How you guys doing? Thanks so much for your time tonight. Just for anybody that's listening to this and watching this that may think it's a little, well, outside the box. When I first heard Dr. Jim speak back around, I don't know, Barry and Dr. Jim was around 2004, 2005 at the Watershed in Pennington. And I first heard this, and I was new to the whole idea of organics, and it was all, to me, this was just lunacy, complete, total lunacy. Now knowing what I know now, I knew so little back then that I listen to you say this now, and now it makes complete and total sense. Like coming at it from the landscape from a traditional standpoint, and it's all product oriented, and you're putting products down to take care of a problem, and changing that paradigm and thinking of it from a natural sense and what's happening in nature and becoming more in tune with nature. 20 years removed from that first meeting to now, it took me 20 years to figure it all out, but it makes perfect sense what you're saying now. So thanks so much for what you guys are doing. It was a great talk. I loved it, and it was really, really great. So thank you.
Yeah, I just say again that, I mean, this is ancient wisdom. We knew this a long time ago, and we forgot, and we did things very differently, and this is a path back to it.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it makes, like I said, it makes so much sense after reading, E.O. Wilson and Tom Lovejoy and Aldo Leopold and all those people that talk about the way things and the way nature is and how we should be interacting with it instead of just looking at it. It's so much different now than 20 years ago. So
Exactly.
yeah, this is great.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work too, Richard. Love you. I've listened to your 2 or 3 of your seminars. Both of us have. And we really appreciate your work too.
Yeah.
With the
Oh,
sustainability and all work with the insects and the
Yeah.
balancing the property. Love it. Absolutely love the work
Yeah,
you're doing.
It's the practical
Practical.
implementation.
Yes.
Yes, that's so important. So thank you. And yeah, we
Thanks,
were a little bit ahead of our time.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little
Oh,
bit.
thank you.
Yeah.
We're
Okay. Thank
catching
you.
up.
Well, we hope you stay for the meditation, the guided visualization. Anyone else? Comments?
I will, but I'm driving, so I don't think I'll be meditating.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, you could just listen. Don't close your eyes.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
So shall we?
Yeah.
Perhaps we go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Diana, I am going to need to share my screen again. So if you could make me
The host again.
a host again. There I am. Okay. Now let me share my screen. Okay, wonderful. All right. So now This will be about 12, 13 minutes long, and it's a guided visualization exercise. It's like what you see these folks going through here. And why do we do this? Well, to find out what a tree's life is like from the tree itself. 5 easy steps. Not going to talk about them. You're just going to go through them. But I do want to set you up with a couple of bits of information. So when you have a connection experience, you're coming from the tree or plant's point of view. And that means taking the perspective of the tree, being tree-centric instead of being human-centric. Well, we're all naturally human-centric because we are human beings. It's water to the fish. We don't even realize that. But having a connection experience gives you a chance to step in those other roots, in the roots of these trees. It's to be the tree, to be another being. And with humility, you enter that tree's world. Okay, so what happens for you? Sensory engagement occurs in that bioenergy overlap. And the truth is, Dr. Jim could not do his work without his sense of smell, because the trees are always sending him fragrances, even in winter, right from the bark. It's pretty amazing. And another thing that happens is intuitive perception. So you're perceiving things in a new way. You might be having feelings or impressions, and you might actually experience something that you didn't previously know. And a real quick short story about this. We were doing an evening night class a couple of years ago, and it was during tax time, and we had an accountant show up, and he said, I don't know anything about trees or plants, but I just had to get away from my desk for a while. So I led the guided visualization exercise. In those kind of little classes, we would provide people with a tiny little plant to use and hold for that exercise. And when it was over, his hand went up and he asked, do trees and plants breathe? And Jim said,
Yes. And then I said to him, yes, from the underside of leaves. Hey, he says, I got that.
Oh yeah,
I got that.
Just got that from this plant. I just learned that. So yeah, even accountants can really get into the plants. So here's my recommendations. When you go through this, don't assume that you know anything about your tree. Set aside all that training and information and allow yourself to have that uniquely personal experience. But there's a little caution I want to add to you. Take whatever you get. If you experience something and you go, oh, it was just my imagination, or oh, I don't think that really could have happened, or how could I know that? Or those are judgments. And I declare this now a no judgment zone. So just be open-minded and take whatever you get. All right, a few logistics. Ideally, you would be outdoors with a tree, but you're probably not. If you're indoors, simply recall a favorite tree, look out the window, ask a houseplant to play along, or use the photos I'm going to show you for an inspiration. So sit comfortably, please. Avoid interruptions. And here are some of the amazing, amazing trees that we've had the privilege to be with over the years. And let's begin. So settle into your chair and breathe. Relax and feel protected by your invisible helpers. If you're remembering a favorite tree, just do the best you can in your imagination. So, step one of the connection experience is observation and appreciation. So, in your mind's eye, view the tree as a whole first. See it in its larger place. View its size, shape, branching. Is the canopy full and lush, Or is it a bit sparse here and there? Now, look closer with your sight or in your imagination. Take a look at any leaf buds or any leaves. Imagine or recall the shapes, shades of color. Now go to the trunk and see a multitude of shapes. Imagine touching it. Feel the textures. Move your focus to the root area. Is the soil smooth or rocky, moist or dry? Is there plenty of room or is it limited? Your tree is trying to live where it is the best it can. So say in your heart, I appreciate your, and fill in the blank. And that leads easily to step 2 of the connection experience, caring or affection. And in this section, you may close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. Probably had a busy day, so just take a moment to sigh, breathe and sigh, breathe and sigh. And let's focus for a moment on that quality that you just appreciated about your tree. Breathe and focus on that quality and smile. If your tree has some health issue or structural issue, you may feel a sense of sympathy or empathy for it. Your caring for the tree may be a new and subtle feeling, or you may already have a deep sense of affection for the tree. Allow that to expand. For now, you might say in your heart, I am your friend. If you were to go no further with the 5 steps of the connection experience, being the tree's friend is the best thing you can do. But let's go further. Step 3 is inner quiet. In other words, feeling calm and peaceful inside. So close your eyes if you're comfortable. Breathe deeply and slowly. And imagine that your own heart is shining like the sun. Its brightness dissipates any clouds of concern. Imagine bright sunshine inside of you and all around you. And give yourself a message of encouragement. You might say to yourself something like, I am at peace. I am giving my attention to this tree. So now you have a measure of inner quiet as we move into step 4 of the connection experience, engagement, or finding out what the tree's life is like. So we always ask permission from the tree, as we would ask permission of another person. So in your heart, say to the tree, I would like to get to know you. Is that okay? And you'll probably feel a sense of calm. That means you have permission. It's unlikely, but if you feel disquiet, you may stop or move to another tree. So your heart's bioenergy field is radiating out beyond your physical body. And the bioenergy field of the tree is also glowing and expanding. Both of your bioenergy fields overlap like water droplets in a pond. In that overlapping area, information can be shared and exchanged. So say quietly to the tree, please show me what your life is like. I'll imagine that I am you. So begin by sensing the cool of moisture moving into roots. And imagine water moving up into the trunk. Feel the sturdiness of the trunk. Experience flexibility in branches. What's it like to feel the warmth of the sun on leaves or leaf buds or on the trunk? What's it like to sway in the breeze? What's it like for rain to fall all around? What's it like to feel a storm? Now imagine fluids pulsing through the circulation system, up from the roots, through the trunk, up into branches, and any leaves or leaf buds. And then back down from those leaves or leaf buds through the trunk to roots again. What's it like to grow a root? Cells elongating. And what is it like to stand in this one place for a lifetime? And now imagine that the tree has a unique purpose, its own purpose for itself, not for anyone else, its own purpose. And what's it like for that tree to live in the community of other trees and of other beings? Now take a deep breath and relax your focus a bit. Your conscious awareness and the tree's sentience are overlapping, so you can do step 5, exchanging messages. Perhaps you already perceived a message from your tree, and if so, fantastic. But if not, you'll want to take the first thing you get, whether or not it makes sense. Allow yourself to have a thought, feel something, hear something, or envision something. Breathe and take the first thing you get. Now, let's ask the tree a couple of questions. Let's ask it about its health. First question: do you have blockages in your circulation system? Second question: since it's early spring now in New Jersey, are your leaf buds strong enough to open quickly into new leaves? Third question: do you need to have a better connection between your roots and the xylem and phloem tubes in your trunk? Now let's just give a message to the tree, a personal message from you. You might say, I care for you. So step 5, exchanging messages. Well, the deep wisdom, spirit, and intelligence of your tree wants to be your friend and wants to tell you about its life. You may need a little more patience. You may have to return a few times. But if you're willing to take the first thing you get, to accept it as a message, then you will gain confidence in exchanging messages. And be sure to enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Feel satisfied that you and your tree have a close and caring connection. You might promise to come back and connect again. You're on your way to more personal inner peace and partnership with your tree and all of nature. So in your heart, say thank you to your tree for this connection experience. And take a deep breath. Relax your focus. Stretch your back and shoulders. And return to your human reality. So just a personal comment from Dr. Jim and me, that when you're connected with your trees, you and your trees can thrive. And we would love to hear about your experience. You can write it up in an email, whisperer@thetreewhisperer.com or naturepartner@partnerwithnature.org.
Or you can,
Or perhaps we can open the floor to a little bit of sharing now, if we like. And let me find Diana again to make her the host. There.
Well, Basia, I'll just say thank you very much for that. This is the calmest I've been all day.
yeah.
Oh. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I'm glad. Did you feel, and I'm asking you, Barry, did you, because I know you're very connected with your own trees. Did you feel that there was like a mutual thing going on to help you be calmer?
Well, like I said, I was feeling calmer from your message and the tone of your voice, and thinking about the tree I'm actually going to go out there tomorrow and have this discussion with.
Great,
Beautiful.
Great.
Beautiful.
Okay. Okay.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. I do ask that question because one of the courses we teach is called Mutual Healing, because trees and plants, a lot of people go to trees and plants for healing, but from our point of view, it has to be mutual. So what we do is we give people the tools to provide some healing. We give them some whispers to provide some healing to the trees. So it ends up being a very mutual two-way experience.
Let me tell you, I'll tell you a quick story too. We were right after the fire that happened in Santa Barbara, California. Shortly after that, they had floods, okay, coming down the hill. And the
Big mudslide.
mudslides. And mudslides, they moved these giant rock formations, made them look like toys.
Boulders the size of RVs.
RVs, yeah, made them look like toys. And we're in this grove of right in Montecito, California, right outside of Santa Barbara. We got connected with a group called the
Bucket Brigade.
And they would help people dig out their homes from these mudslides, okay? And one of the places they had to dig out, there was a whole grove of 150-year-old live oak trees, okay? And naturally, you know, when you have that much soil, I mean, there must have been 6 feet of soil on these trees. So yes, they had equipment come in, but you know, right close to the trees, you can't get too close with equipment because you'll bump up against the bark and tear up the trees. So they had to do that by hand. So they did that by hand. And this guy that was leading the group asked us to come in and can we help the trees, you know, after they dug them all out. And we did, and worked on the trees. And I asked him, I said, well, how did the people feel after they got done digging out the trees? And he said, and he kind of looked at me with a face and just kind of stared for a minute. And he said, to the person, he said they were exhilarated and they'd been working all day digging out these trees, you know? And so it's that mutual benefit, you know, the trees appreciated what people did for them, and they appreciated what the trees, you know, the trees appreciated what the people did for them, and the people appreciated working on the trees.
Yeah.
So everybody got something out of it. It was a win-win situation. That's it. Yeah. Go ahead, Basia. Yes, if there's anybody else.
Anyone else? Something from Richard
Sure.
McCoy. Ah,
I just got a text from Diana. You made the wrong Diana the host.
oh, oh dear.
Diana on
Um,
make Diana on the iPad the host.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Oh, there she is. Oh, well, so Diana on her iPad, does she have to,
Maybe the one who is the host has to.
maybe she has to change, make, Diana Carpioni the host. Oh
Yes,
dear.
That- yes. She can't unmute herself.
Can you unmute people? We got a lot of questions.
Oh,
We got
dear.
comments here.
Yes, so Diana on the iPad, can you